Ahead of every new set, Pokegym releases rulings for the most interesting cards, with the information coming straight from the Pokemon Company. For Destined Rivals, there's not too much in the way of wacky new interactions, but there is one card that brings up an old rule some thought was lost to time, or is, common sense. Randomly, my most popular tweet ever, I highlighted Team Rocket's Blipbug. Its Searching Eyes attack says, look at one of your opponent's face down prize cards. So I spent hours crafting the perfect tweet, writing, you prized an Isball, and the opponent replying, thanks bro. Truly something that will go down in the annals of history. But it did cause the creation of a conversation around lying in the Pokemon trading card game. You see, unlike Tinder, you can't mislead other people to gain a competitive advantage. By going to the official tournament rules handbook under the section about cheating, it says that you can be disqualified for taking an action during the game that was a rule violation and committing a rule violation with the intent to gain a competitive advantage. There's a lot of fluff in the given examples, but if you read between the lines, you can't lie to your opponent to gain a competitive advantage. While Blipbug isn't given as an example, it does present a sticky situation like you just got hit by a string shot after dreaming about Lopunny using Sweet Kiss on a Gardevoir. Basically, like I pointed out in that tweet, you can look at one of your opponent's face down prize cards and tell them what it is. Obviously, if they don't know the rule about lying, they might think you're launching some psychological warfare against them. So long as you tell them it's a nest ball and it's a nest ball in that prize card slot, that's fine. You're not lying to gain a competitive advantage, instead you're actually helping your opponent. However, you can't go, aw damn bro, I'm so sorry you prized your ace pick. A Prestige 2 PTCGL player like me always checks their deck to find their prizes, so I would know what's prized and what's not. But if you're feeling lucky, you could take that 10% chance your opponent prized their ace spec. And if you're right, they would think that that specific prize card is the ace spec, grab it, then be disappointed it's a useless buddy poffin. Of course, they could call a judge in that instance and you'd be hit with a double prize penalty, quadruple prize penalty, or maybe even a game loss. So yeah, don't do that. If this disappoints those among you who try to make your opponents question their own reality, I've got some good news. When using Blipbug's attack and looking at their prize card, you can simply make a face. Or say something like, oof, I can't believe you prized that. It's not a lie, it's not intimidation, it's just a reaction to a situation. To be safe, making a face is probably your best bet, or chuckling to yourself while shaking your head as you look at the card. Aside from being able to smell your opponent and accidentally dropping a card under the table to see if they're wearing sandals, the human element is the biggest advantage of playing IRL. Otherwise, everyone would just play on Pokemon TCG Live, and not even the Pokemon Company is willing to subject us to that. I mean, remember when they hosted store tournaments on PTCGO? Yeah, they haven't done anything close to that on Live. Now, cards like Blipbug, where you can see your opponent's cards either in the deck or in the prizes, but they can't, have been around for a long time. I tried to look back at older interactions to see if there was a specific rule about them, but all I could find was Rule 34 stuff that isn't safe for YouTube. The only relevant piece of information was the clarification that you can't change the order of your opponent's prize cards. So if you use Blipbug's attack, make sure that prize goes back in the exact same spot. Looking at a couple of responses to that tweet, if you're a boomer like me who can't find joy in anything anymore, there was a Mankey from Jungle that allowed you to peek at either player's prizes. Like I said, this effect's been around for a long time. And Pear had a good idea of both players using Blipbug for 6 turns, mapping out each other's prizes. I've definitely been backing the idea recently of drawing 13 at the start of a game, then putting 6 of them in your prizes after shuffling. Since the Pokemon Company doesn't seem to be listening, this is the community's way to get around the dated prizing mechanic that is in desperate need of a refresh. I also perused the Unsporting conduct section of the handbook and found a couple interesting tidbits. Something minior that would result in a warning is leaving food wrappers in the play area. Something major that would result in a match loss is attempting to distract your opponent by lifting your legs up above the table and doing a seductive dance with your bare feet. Slow play could also give you a match loss. This is characterized as making legal plays that have no effect on the game in progress. For example, if your opponent is playing a stall deck and palpads 2 supporters into their empty deck, then uses Artisan to look at their deck, that would fall under this category. Because you both know they have no Pokemon in that deck. They're just intentionally wasting time hoping to run out the clock. And for acts that can result in disqualification, they include bribery. So you can't say, "Oi mate, if you give me this game, I'll DM you some feet pics." Because I spent so much time skimming the rulebook, I figured I'd also share the interesting things about pace of play. Namely, how long it should take you to do certain actions. According to the Pokemon Company, shuffling and deck searches midway through a game should take 15 seconds. Same with attacking or performing the actions of a card. Considering the game position before playing a card should take 10 seconds, with the time between the end of their turn and the start of your turn being 5 seconds. As a TCG Live player, my favorite part about the rulebook for IRL play is that each person should receive roughly half of the allotted time for the game. If you ever wonder why I become so irate when my opponent's timer is 6 minutes lower than mine, refer to this rule. Oh, and if you're ever playing in real life, you can take notes on a piece of paper. And best of all, you don't have to share it with your opponent. However, if a judge asks to see it, you have to show them. So don't write down how attractive you think that particular judge is, otherwise they might notice and give you a free foot massage. Anyways, the bottom line with Blipbug is that if you ever use it in a tournament, I mean, nobody ever will, but if you ever do, never say what they actually prized, because that would be lying, and lying is bad. Unless it's to protect your ex-wife's feelings when you say it must have been the wash that shrunk her pants. As for some of the other new Destined Rivals cards, the most interesting ruling has to do with Yanmega EX and Surfer. While TCG Live probably won't do this, the official ruling is that if you use Surfer to switch into Yanmega, you get to choose which effect resolves first. 99% of the time you'll want to accelerate the 3 energy with Yanmega's Buzzing Boost ability first, but if you want to Surfer up to 5 cards in hand first, that option is available. I know I mentioned this in a previous video, but Team Rocket's Watchtower only removes abilities from colorless Pokemon in play. For this example, they use Arven's Greedent, but you can swap in any colorless Pokemon with an ability. Basically, if Team Rocket's Arbok is in your opponent's active spot and Team Rocket's Watchtower is in play, you cannot play a colorless Pokemon with an ability from hand. Because if it's still in hand, it still has an ability. Then there's Team Rocket's Orbeetle. Similar to Slowbro, its ability allows you to move damage counters on your Pokemon. And yes, you can KO your own Pokemon with Orbeetle's ability. However, you cannot over-damage one of your Pokemon since the ability only moves 1 damage counter at a time. So as soon as you, say, put 13 damage counters on Orbeetle, it's knocked out and your opponent gets a prize. If you ever played with Ghastly from Unbroken Bonds back in the Sun and Moon days, you'll be aware of this fun ruling with Team Rocket's Koffing. If the new Koffing takes damage from an opponent's attack, even if it's knocked out, you can search your deck for 2 Pokemon with Koffing in their name and put them on your bench. So if Koffing is your lone Pokemon and your opponent KOs it with damage from an attack, you don't actually lose the game. The ability resolves before the game ends, letting you put 2 Koffing on the bench. I still remember the first time this happened on PTCGO. I knocked out their lone Ghastly, thought I'd won, lotioned up my feet, then oops, nope, game's still going and I lost because of misclicks due to slippery fingers. The odds of someone playing Arboliva EX and the opponent having Granite Cave down are slim, but if the matchup ever appears, Oil Salvo is considered a single attack. While you do spread 20 damage 6 times, the damage is calculated after you finish spreading all of it. So if you decide to put 40 total damage on a Stevens Pokemon, Granite Cave would reduce that by 30, meaning you only do 10 damage to that Stevens Pokemon. The outcome would be the same if another damage-reducing card like Rigid Band is attached to a Stage 1 Pokemon. Oh, and to show how confusing the Pokemon TCG can be for new and veteran players alike, Misty's Gyarados can use its Splashing Panic attack even if you have less than 7 cards in deck. But Team Rocket's Porygon Z can't use its ability if you have 0 cards in deck. Gyarados is a case of doing as much as you can, while Porygon's is an ability that must resolve in order to activate. If you can't draw a card, you can't activate the ability. Like I said, confusing. Ultimately, Destined Rivals is fairly tame when it comes to new rulings. As long as you don't lie to your opponent in real life about what you saw with Blipbug, there's not too much to worry about. I'll link the Pokegym article in the description, as there's a few other common sense rulings I didn't cover, including how Team Rocket's Articuno prevents your opponent's Team Rocket's Wobbuffet from putting damage counters on your active basic Team Rocket's Pokemon, but the Wobbuffet will still take those damage counters from their bench Team Rocket's Pokemon. Yeah, if you enjoy reading nonsensical things, I highly recommend clicking on that link. Otherwise, if you have any questions about card rulings, ask away in the comments. There's a 50-50 chance an actual judge will answer you, or someone else will gaslight you into thinking that Shaman should totally stop Dragapult EX's Phantom Dive pings.